So I'm going to show you how to make one of these nebula beads today. So to do that, you're going to need some Iris Gold stringer pulled from Iris Gold Frit. I'm using a light Iris Gold, but a regular Iris Gold or a number of other Iris Frits will work. I have some photographs and information about some variations at the end of the video. So here's some Iris Gold stringer that I pulled earlier. You'll need a light ivory. I'm using a commercial stringer. Some clear. I'm using Lausha clear. Striking red, which is number 076, and opaque black, Frit, which is 064. Okay. So I'm going to show you how to pull some iris yellow stringer. So I'm taking clear rod. I'm using a Frit 006, and I'm just melting the end of it, and then I'm going to dip it in my Frit bowl and pick up a bunch of Frit. I'm going to melt it, and then I'm going to dip it again. I'm going to do this 3 or 4 times until I have a pretty good gather of the iris yellow Frit on the end, and then I'm going to pull that into a stringer. Sometimes as you press it into the Frit bowl, it may get a little wide, so you can morph it a little bit to straighten it out. There we go. That's the last gather, and I'll melt that in and pull it into a stringer next. Okay, so I moved the gather into my non-dominant hand, and I've got my tweezers for pulling a stringer in my right hand. These are the kind where you push them to open, and when you let go, it holds closed. All right, so I'm going to get my gather good and hot. I'm going to take it out, let the super bright glow go, but you still want it to be yellow. Pinch and grab a bit, and then pull it out into a stringer. The slower you pull it, the faster it will be. Fatter it will be. The faster you pull it, the thinner it will be. All right, I'm going to just flame cut that and set that down to cool. Make sure you store your lighter in a safe place, away from hot flying glass. Okay, and we want to get our flame set up and grab a mandrel. And I'm going to wind on a base bead of black. And then I'm going to make some dots around it. I'll probably go with 6 or 7 of them. And then I'm going to make these little nebula things using the Iris Gold on the dots after I layer some colors and then put clear on top of that. So let's start by making a black base bead. I'll make it large enough we can see what's going on. So next I'm going to add some ivory dots around the bead. They go 2 across from each other. And if I do 2 in between, it'll give me 6 dots on the bead. I'm just melting these in and pressing them flat with my dental tool. When you're nudging, you can also scooch them in one direction or the other to help make the spacing between the dots a little more even. So I can cheat a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to go for my transparent red. I'm going to dot that on top of it. You'll notice after I flame cut it, I'm putting the dot on the top so that it flows down evenly around the whole ivory dot. I melt it, heat it, and then let gravity kind of pull it down. Okay. I'm going to let those melt in a little bit. They're also going to strike as I'm heating them and they're cooling them. That causes them to turn transparent red. I'm going to let that cool a little bit. While that's cooling a bit, I'm going to melt some dots on my iris stringer and put that on each of the dots next. The stringer is fairly dense in terms of the iris, and a lot of coats of it, and there's not a whole lot of clear in the middle. I'm just turning it to melt those in and let them spread out. And the magic is starting to happen, but we're really going to accentuate it by adding in some clear. So I'm going to keep my bead, in the back edge of the flame to keep it warm. At this point, I want to make sure that I don't have a reduction flame, because that can turn the iris to icky mud color. So while the Lauscha clear is heating up, I turn my propane up a little bit, and I've got the bead in the back of the flame just to keep it warm. And now I'm going to put a generous dollop of clear on each of these. And the final bead will have these dots raised and tactile. And again, as before, I'm putting the dot down, I'm flame cutting, I'm heating it, and then I'm turning it so that gravity can pull it down evenly. I'm going to go around and melt them all. I may need to add a little bit more glass to some of them so that they're the same size. Again, after I heat it from both edges, I let it pause at the top so that gravity will pull it down evenly. Okay. There you have it, one nebula bead ready for the kiln. You can see I made it with a black core, ivory dots, and they're red transparent, and then the iris gold stringer to create the really neat nebula. You can also make it with different colors for the base instead of the transparent striking red, or obviously you can change the black out for something else too. The ivory below the red is just what gives it its brightness, otherwise it would be too dark on the black background. You wouldn't see what's going on in the nebula dots. So if you search the wet canvas forum, there's lots of threads from the early 2005, 2006 time frame on the faux boro and using iris gold. So there's a wealth of information out there. Thanks for watching. So I want to show you a couple of variations on the nebula bead. The one that I demonstrated in the tutorial video uses light iris gold. That's a fairly light colored frit. I also gave it a try with Iris Amber Green, which has a little bit more pigment. These happen to be number 2, so they're slightly larger chunks. And then the third thing I tried was an Iris Green, and that has got definitely a lot more green pigmentation in it. So here are the beads. This first one here is the nebula bead that I demonstrated in the video, and it is on the striking red. This second bead and this fourth bead were made using the iris green. You can definitely see the green tones showing up in the beads. And you do see some of the interesting nebula happenings within those little raised dots on it. This one here, I tried using the Iris Amber Green, and you get a little bit of stuff, but it's not all that impressive. So, I would stick with the Iris Green or the one over the striking red. I don't know, maybe I need to change my flame chemistry or something with this other color. If you do give it a whirl and try it and find some combination that looks good, definitely let me know. The other thing you can do is kind of change how you're utilizing it. So this is a bead that I made with just a simple tree, made with silvered ivory, and I put the nebula sort of like a cool moon planet on the top end of the bead, and I put a little heart so you can use it for beads of courage. Anyway, those are a couple of variations on the theme. Enjoy and have fun with the technique. So be sure to check out my playlist on Frit techniques. There are several videos already released, and there will be a few more coming up soon. One of them is a paintbrush technique. I think this is probably one of my favorites. Well, they're all really good. It's a technique I learned from Val Cox's Frit Secrets books. It's really good for focal beads, and you can make some smaller size beads fairly quickly, 3 per mandrel. I'll show you how to do that. There's a collection of organics bead styles. It's based on an article I wrote in Glassline magazine a number of years ago, and I did a variation on it using intense black as opposed to the original with silvered ivory, and you can use pretty much any color Frit with that. I have a faux boro video out there, and there's a number of alternates that you can do. The green is one of them, but this makes really cool dragon scale beads. I have one on an ethereal raku powder technique. This is what I use to make these. They're pretty fun. Some of the new videos coming out are going to be how to pull flat stringers from Frits, and these are great for floral beads. And I'm also going to have a new one coming out soon about how to use chunks and pull that into stringer. Sometimes you can get like a number 5 Frit, which are chunks around this size, or sometimes you may get rod. Actually, in a rod, it's a big, 1-inch diameter cane, and you have to chop it up, and you can use that. So I'll have a video on that coming out soon too. You can also take any of these size chunks or rods of glass and make your own Frit. So I'll show you how to do that as well. So make sure you like and subscribe so you get notification of all the new stuff coming out. Thanks for watching. Bye.